Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Brimstone Coaching Podcast. My name is Kurt Bush. I'm here with my friend and coaching partner, Chris Godfredson. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing all right today, Kurt. How about you?
Yeah, doing well. Today, Chris, we're going to talk about something and make a little bit of a shift in
Hmm.
uh, in the way we've been pod recording lately in some of the episodes.
Finally.
I know. Does that mean that we get to forget about that pesky paraphrase that says if leaders don't invest in themselves, they are disqualified from leading? Does that go
Probably
away?
not. Probably not. I think that's always front of mind,
Yeah,
but we
yeah.
don't have to talk about it
We
all the time.
we don't. We're gonna shift just a little bit. And we're gonna start to wonder, Chris, then coming out of this conversation last episode about preferred promises, which listener, if you haven't heard, be a good time to go back and listen to that last
Yeah, it
one to
would.
kind of be along with us here. Um, we're going to come out of those conversations about preferred promises and begin to ask the question, okay, now how do we want to lead, right?
Yeah.
How do we want to how do we want to go forward? How do we
Hmm.
move in a direction that continues walking towards wholeness and contentment and fulfillment in work and in play and in all parts of our lives, right?
Yeah. Sounds like a fun conversation. It's about to unfold.
Well, I mean, I think so. This feels like a little more of a productive turn in the second quarter here in the Brimstone Coaching Pod. Um,
Yeah.
we might say, you and I, Chris, might say, sort of the high level 30,000 foot. Is that the figure of speech?
Yeah.
30,000 foot?
Normally. Yep.
Yeah. If we could take the 30,000 foot view of how do we want to lead, how do we want to live and work and play, we would say something like this. We want to do all those things with integrity.
Yeah. That's a
Um,
powerful word, isn't it?
it is, and I imagine that word probably just stirred something up for the
Hmm.
listeners.
Probably did.
What do you think? wh- I was about to do the thing where I interviewed you, but we're doing this together. I don't have to interview you. Can I tell you what it stirred up in me the first time I heard this word?
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, well, I guess I've heard this word long before what I'm about to tell you, but
Wow.
the first time I heard this word used in connection with how I lead and how I live and work and play, it stirred up a decent amount of shame for me.
Hmm.
Um,
Say
a,
more.
yeah, yeah. Um, I always have had this high view of integrity or this high desire to hold integrity, but I would define integrity um, just one very narrow way.
Hmm.
And that was, in essence, like I'm going to give my word to something, I'm going to keep it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. And and that's right. Like we would affirm
Hmm.
that as a working definition of
Yeah.
integrity or part of a
Yep.
working definition. Um, but I think what it stirred up in me was the feeling that used to accompany failing at that or missing the mark
Mm.
at that or not doing what I said I was going to do or not following through.
Yeah.
So I think that there was a lot that stirred up in me that sort of made me bristle a little bit and maybe want to take a step away for a little bit. But I don't assume everybody has that experience. I wonder if you've had any experiences like that, or what was it like the first time you kind of started to think about integrity kind of flowing into a place of your leading and living and working and playing?
Really smooth how you avoided the follow-up question. Pretty well
You can
played.
ask it.
Yeah,
You can
I will.
ask it.
I will after I answer your question
Okay.
because
Okay.
because I want to say that I probably felt some of the things that you felt, right?
Hmm.
When it's like, oh, all of the times that I have not done the thing that I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
There's like if last week and or last podcast we talked about that preferred promise and I said I lead with authenticity,
Hmm.
integrity, and courage, and that makes me a person worth following. Well, if I when I was like confronted with that as a leader, I was like, oh no, there's been a lot of times when I
Yeah.
didn't do what I said I was going to do
Yeah.
at home, in the classroom back in the day. Like I said I was going to block that defensive end and I did not do it
Yeah. Yeah.
over and over again. So like when I and we were with some people last night that I didn't really know, had never met before, and we were having conversation about like college and life and stuff. And I was like, and somebody was talking about Hastings College. I'm like, oh, like that was the longest day of my playing career, probably in all of my days of playing, because I said I was going to block that guy, and I don't know if I blocked him once. He ate my lunch. So, like when we think about it, then as being leaders, like what's immediately poked and stirred in me is I'm out of
Yeah.
integrity a lot.
Yeah.
If that definition, I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then what does that mean? I mean, so this is the question I wanted to ask is,
Yeah.
okay, if I'm not in integrity all the time, or if I don't maintain integrity, what do you do with that when you think about integrity and leadership?
Yeah. Yeah. I can I ask you to ask that a little differently?
Sure, I'm going to try.
Okay.
Uh, so when you process through, oh, I felt shame when I think about leadership and integrity. How did you combat that? Maybe that's how I want to ask the question. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think so. I think I just now maybe understood the first time you worded it too, so I might
Sure,
take a stab at a couple things.
do it.
I mean, I think what I realized early on, we're talking, almost a decade ago at this point,
Yeah.
that these
Yep.
things are stirring up, and I think what I remember being true is that I remembered this really strong desire to, like be on time at places and don't say yes to things I can't actually
Mm,
follow through with. Like those are first formation things
yeah.
that I remember. Um, but I think part of that then was, as a kid, there's not really this sort of nuanced thought that can tell me, well, of course I'm not going to do this perfectly every time.
Hmm.
Instead, the lack of abstract thought, I think, told younger Kurt, oh man, I don't like failing. I don't like what this feels like
Right.
when I'm late to something, or I don't like what this feels like when I don't follow through on a commitment. Um, I think to answer the second question or the second part of the question, I think I began to combat that with self-compassion. And I imagine there's a pod episode coming just on self-compassion. Uh,
Right.
but I think the reality was that I needed to learn that 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 I can name how I want to be. I can name those ways I want to show up, whether
Yeah.
that's saying what's so for me, or whether that was younger version of Kurt saying I'm gonna be home for curfew on time, or I'm gonna
Yeah.
whatever. Um,
Hmm.
I can name those things and those can guide my direction, but I'm not going to do it every time.
Yeah.
Like there are
Hmm.
going to be times when those situations get the better of me.
Mm.
Um, and I don't want those times to derail all the other times, right? I don't want those things to
Yeah.
lead me to a place of shame
Hmm.
that causes me to withdraw or stop trying or forget those preferred promises
Why
that
not? Why?
well, well that well, because I mean the short answer is because I've decided and promised that those are the ways that I'm
Yes.
that I'm going to live, right?
Yeah.
Um, those I haven't made those preferred promises for nothing. I made them because that's in my best thinking how I want to be. Um,
Exactly.
and I think when shame drives the bus, there's the opportunity to say, you know what? I think I'm just going to let those go,
Hmm.
um, and just do what we've always done, right?
Just keep doing the thing, right?
Keep doing the
Yeah.
thing.
Keep
Yep.
doing what you do when you do what you do. And
Yeah.
like when when you expect a different result, like I can't run a business when you are um,
Yeah.
not here. because you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
We can't run a coaching practice if I avoid making commitments because I don't like how it feels when I fail. If I might, by the off chance, fail,
Yeah, right. Fail.
right?
Huh. Yeah,
And I don't even like the word fail. M m
right. Yeah,
not follow through is probably a
yeah.
a
I
better
think that
phrase.
is the better use of the language, right? Because even in our not following through, there's a likely another opportunity is going to present itself. Because if
Yeah,
you're anything like me, or if the listener's anything like me, if you miss a chance, there's another one coming right around the corner, and then I get to be prepared. Okay, is that really how I wanted to behave? Is that how I want to be? Do I want to not follow through? Do I want to not do the thing I said I was going to do? No,
yeah,
no. And sometimes there are things that limit my, I'd say, both ability and willingness to actually do it.
yeah, yeah,
And when I'm tuned in, when I'm attuned to myself and the situations I find myself in, I'm more apt to actually follow through, to complete tasks with integrity. And then there's times when I'm like caught by surprise or uh, overloaded with all the things that I'm, I give my word more recklessly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
We
yeah.
say all the
That's
time, right, that words have power.
yeah,
And and maybe that
yeah,
was a powerful one right there. But I think there are times when I give my word thoughtfully, knowing that I can complete the task. There are other times, and this is the difference, right? Sometimes we ask people and we invite people to give their word to try on new things and new ways of being,
yeah,
understanding that they aren't present, that they're aspirational, that at the moment
yeah,
you aren't able to complete the task, but you're going to try. And then when you don't, you clean up your mess with yourself. And if I'm doing it and I tell you I'm going to do something and I don't do it, then I'll clean up my mess with myself. I'll clean up my mess
yeah,
with you, and then I try again. But
yeah,
there's also times when, like, yep, I need to give my word less recklessly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That feels pretty profound. I mean, that could be a podcast all in
Yeah,
itself.
probably, right?
I feel like we live in a time where giving our word recklessly is just sort of almost
Mm,
expected. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
yep.
guilty, right?
Because of all of the pressure
Yeah,
to do so. I
yeah,
mean, that yeah, to just get somebody off my back, or to say I'm going to get a project done, or that
yeah,
to do to complete a litany of things that really aren't reasonable.
yeah.
And people are doing this all the time. My work-life balance is not the same as it was
Mm,
15, 20 years ago. It doesn't
mm,
have to be, because 15 and 20 years ago, it was ridiculous the things I was trying to juggle.
sure.
The fact that there was ever any integrity when I was in grad school and I had a high schooler, a middle schooler, an elementary schooler. And so, I mean, it was insane. And we were in gyms 4 nights a week. There's no way
Yeah,
that you could actually do all of the things.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I think it's really good. Is there anything else, like if I asked you the question, how do you combat some of those feelings of shame, knowing yours are a little different than mine? Like how have you combated some of those? How would you answer that question?
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I mean, full disclosure, in all sincerity, there have been plenty of times when I said I was going to do something and then I didn't get it done.
Yeah,
And and so like I used the phrase, I think a moment ago, I can't remember for sure, but I think I said that like I have had to clean up some real messes.
mm,
And what that means is uh, when somebody gives me feedback. Oh, don't we love feedback? When somebody has
come
said to
on.
me, like, uh, you said you were going to do this and then you did not do that. to be able to sit in there and listen, not defensively
Yeah.
or offensively as I might do.
Yeah.
If I'm tripped up, then I'm gonna and I'm found out or caught, then I might begin to run roughshod because that is my protective promise rearing its ugly head. But if it's true that I lead with authenticity, integrity, and courage, and that makes me a person worth following, now I get to listen.
Mm.
And I use that word on
Yeah.
purpose. I get
Yeah.
to listen for impact. I get to ask for
Yeah.
and listen for impact. And
Yeah.
and let's be honest, even though I'm willing, it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt or it doesn't
Yeah.
sting when
Yeah.
somebody is willing to be honest and say, well, this is the impact of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then to receive that information and to actually clean up the mess and to try again. And I say all of that still with the deep realization that I'm not going to do it perfectly. Like I
Yeah.
want to I want to clean up my mess with you and say, Kurt, I'm sorry. I'm going to do my very best. So what I don't say is I'll never do that again. I
Right.
used to say that and then I did it again.
Right. Naturally.
And so that makes me a liar, right? I can't keep that promise. It's not possible. Not this, not as long as I'm breathing, the way I
Yeah.
understand life. I'm not going to be perfect,
Yeah.
but to the best of my ability, I am going to try to not repeat this behavior. And and then I go again with this person, with the situation, with the group, with you. Uh,
Yeah.
and like, yeah, integrity is a high value. And giving our word to things really thoughtfully really matters.
Yeah. Can I go back a second?
Please, yeah.
You used and named the intentional language of getting to listen for impact.
Mm.
I think we need to hear more about why is that the intentional language and what do you mean by that? Because
Well,
I got to tell you, there. I mean, I devil's advocate, right?
yeah.
That this stinks. I don't
Mm.
want to hear impact, right?
Yeah, right.
There was a time in my life where I'd say, that's way too hard. Um,
Yeah.
I am not going to do that.
Yep.
Or if I am going to do that, I'm going to do it begrudgingly. So why do you use that language?
I think I use it because we understand the world probably differently than we once did, right? And so we
Hmm.
can look at the system, we can look at our lives, we can look at situations, we can look at experiences as a part of a larger system.
Mm,
And we can understand, I understand that I play a part
yeah.
in the system.
Yeah.
I play a part in the results that I'm getting. And
Yeah.
so I want to blame you or I want to blame the other person for the thing that I did or didn't do.
Yeah.
And I think where I get to take responsibility, I get to clean up my mess, I get to listen to impact or for impact. The reason I say that is because uh, I played a part. I
Yeah.
did or didn't do something that created a problem.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, like I wanted to rush through and get past pain and anger and frustration to I'm forgiven and now it's time to move on. And uh,
Yeah.
it did not lead to transformation.
Yeah.
It led to increased, I would say, brokenness in relationships that I found myself in. And
Yeah.
so when I say I get to listen to impact it because I want to hear it so that I can really understand what it is that I'm going to apologize for if I'm going to apologize.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because
Yeah.
like, I think the world would say, well, just apologize. And then
Right.
I say, for what?
Right.
Well, because this, and this. Well, so I see this differently. And the part I played, I mean, there have been times when somebody would expect me to apologize, and I thought once I listened to Impact, oh, yeah, like I would apologize, and but there's times when I've listened to Impact and I've said, uh, oh, well, I don't see that the same way,
Yeah,
and so uh, listening for Impact really helps me get clear on what
yeah,
it is that I might apologize for if I'm in or if I'm out of integrity. But then
yeah,
if I'm in integrity, like I can say, well, can you tell me more about that? And we can engage in a dialogue
yeah.
rather than me just willy-nilly apologizing to move past the problem.
Chris, I love, like, I couldn't agree more with what you just said.
Hmm.
I'm gonna make a statement, and I want you to say agree or disagree.
Hmm.
But first, we're gonna take a little break. What if the biggest thing holding you back isn't the challenge in front of you, but the promises that you've made to yourself? At Brimstone Coaching Group, we help teams, businesses, and organizations break through hidden barriers in our Promises Workshop. This is a hands on experience that helps you and your team identify and replace self limiting beliefs with purposeful promises that foster growth, confidence, and resilience. You can bring this powerful workshop to your company, nonprofit, or leadership team and start creating a culture of trust, collaboration, and transformation. Visit brimstonecoachinggroup.com to learn more. Okay, Chris, can I make my statement?
Yeah, please. Love to
Okay,
hear it.
I think for me, what's been true is now that I live into preferred promises or have preferred promises that I attempt to live into as much as
Yeah.
possible, listening for impact and having someone say to me, "Hey, this thing that you didn't follow through on, here's what that was like for me, or here's the impact it had on me." That is far. I hate to use the word easier, but I'm gonna say far less difficult
Mhm.
than it was pre-preferred promises when I was just surviving life, hoping not to screw up. Fair?
Fair. I agree with that.
Yeah, I think when I look back, when I was just white knuckling, trying to not screw up, right? Trying to just not cause waves or not make somebody mad or not miss a deadline or not follow through. When I would drop the ball or when I would make a mess, well, now what do I do? I mean, I didn't really have anything to fall back on to say, here's how it's going to be different next time. It was just back to surviving, right?
Yeah. Yep.
The preferred promises really do feel like the the tool that helps me receive impact with way less shame involved,
Yeah.
um, and with a direction. Again, we use that word a lot, like this is the way forward, but it's a direction to try again, right?
Right.
Um, I'm not
Be-
wondering what am I going to do now. I know what I'm going to do the preferred prompt. I'm going to attempt to live into that again.
yeah. Because you really do want to do what you say you're
Yeah,
going to do when
yeah,
you say you're going to do it. I mean,
yeah,
you, yeah, integrity is a high value for us. That's why it's one of our
yeah,
um, core values, if you will. And people, even even in 2025, people still want to engage with others who have integrity.
yeah, yeah. Can I give you an example?
Please.
I was a part of a staff that lived these principles out really well,
Mhm. Yeah.
or lived out similar principles really well. Um, there was a point in time, just a few years ago, actually, where one of the leaders on the staff made a mistake that
Mm.
actually had high impact. Actually, had impact on paychecks and
Oh,
when people received their pay.
yeah. Okay.
Um, this is not a small impact.
Yeah.
Um, and this person stood up well, metaphorically stood up.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, there may have been an
Owned it.
actual owned it, and said to the entire staff, I made a mistake, and I
Mm.
understand that it had impact, and I just want to say that I want to hear what the impact was for you. And this leader sat or stood, I don't remember which, but was present in this meeting and gave space, remained silent, didn't justify, didn't defend, simply said, "I'm gonna stop talking and I'm gonna listen." Um,
Wow.
that moment, Chris, for me w um, was so impactful for the ways that I see this work in an organization, and the ways that I can see this work affect a leader's uh, affect or grow a leader's effectiveness.
Yeah. Is there anything that you want to say about that? Like, what was the benefit for the system moving forward? You know, so if we're thinking about leadership teams who feel stuck or stopped, and somebody stands up, metaphorically or literally, they take responsibility for being out of integrity. What is what did you experience, or what's the value, do you suppose, in just being able to own it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's a level of vulnerability that this takes, that that I just think can't not. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Can't
Hmm.
not have a positive effect on the way the team saw this person. Um, right. This person did an incredibly vulnerable thing to say, I made a mess and I'm not even gonna block the things that are coming at me. I'm just gonna let you say what was so for you.
Yeah.
And I think that level of vulnerability did something to the dynamic of the team. I think that level of vulnerability and that level of care, uh,
Mm.
I don't know if it was genuine care for people or genuine care for the system, but it does
Mhm.
communicate a genuine level of care
Yeah.
that says I want to hear your voice,
Mm.
and that's how I received it.
Yeah.
I received it as you, leader, do really want to hear what I have to say,
Yeah.
which it instantly builds a level of trust.
Yeah.
Um, you and I have probably been in circles before where where we've experienced a disconnect between
Hmm.
leaders and other people that might report to them or work with them, and I think in that moment, that sign of care, that show of interest and impact, just did wonders, I think,
Yeah.
to build trust, because this person couldn't hide in that moment. Like
Right.
this person was in front of 12 people,
Yeah.
waiting for it. Like there's no hiding at that
Right.
point,
Yep.
right? You're not faking anything in that
Mm.
moment.
Yeah.
There's
Do you know
no
what?
faking.
That's really good. Do you know what word comes to mind for me?
Go.
So when you say trust, I feel that. And I can be in spaces and places with people who say they're going to do something, and then they miss the mark. They don't get it done.
Yeah.
If and when they're willing to clean up their mess, uh, what it does is, like, I respect that.
Yeah. That's a good word.
I have respect for people
Yeah.
who are willing to own up to the mess, who are, I mean, I think that there's a great deal of integrity in cleaning up the mess. So you didn't do what you
Yeah.
said you were going to do. Okay. But now here I am, and I want to hear from you,
Yeah.
how that impacts you. And so, like, yeah, it does build trust. And I think it earns my respect as well as
Yeah.
my trust. And
I like
when
that.
those things happen, right? And that's what I want to do. I mean, I don't say this very often. And so maybe it's just alive in me through this conversation today. But I do want to be respected.
Yeah.
I do think that in many ways I earn people's respect, and have earned respect. And then when I miss the mark, when I don't follow through, I don't do the things, that every time that there's an opportunity then that I lose your respect.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if that's like that like is really alive in me at the moment, I probably shouldn't say a whole lot more because I'm gonna walk us down a path that we don't want to go. But uh yeah,
Well,
I'm gonna have to sit with this a little
yeah.
bit because like I do
Yeah.
uh, I, yeah,
Yeah. Well,
respect matters.
respect matters. Yeah. Well, let me say a little bit more. I I don't like leadership cliches. I
Mm.
just have bristled at them forever. Um, and I'm about to give one. Um, when this leader did what they did, that set the tone for how
Mm.
the organization was going to behave together.
Yeah.
That was clear in that moment. What I knew is if I'm going to make a mess, then I'm going to get to do this too, right?
Hmm.
That
Yes.
I'm going to get to ask for the same thing. Um, it, it it in a moment it created the culture that said this is how we're going to clean up messes together. We're
Yeah.
not going to self-preserve. We're not going to defend. And
Yeah.
I think maybe, I mean, that's part of the respect piece is like, this is how we are going to be together and we respect one another because of this posture.
Yeah.
Um, but I do maybe wonder if that cliche, I think, how would it be like speed of the leader, speed of the team, which
Sure.
I hate it even coming out of my mouth. But I think that was part of it of like, oh, this is how we do business. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And and I think
Yeah.
it's true. I think the leader does set the tone when they're willing to stand up and to take it because. And as I tripped over this thought, and we had to edit this out, like Kurt helped me say what it was that I was going to say because I couldn't remember what it was I was going to say, and it's this: like we are so conditioned to believe that the problem is out there,
Yeah.
that the problem is everybody else. And what systems thinking would say that you're to blame, I'm to blame, everyone's to blame, no one's to blame. So we all play a part in the results that we're getting. And so if I say I'm going to do something and I don't do it,
Yeah.
and I'm unwilling to own up to it, I'm going to lose trust. I'm going to have no respect. The
Yeah.
organization is going to constantly be butting up against a really low ceiling.
Yeah.
Leaders are going to be frustrated. There won't be any leaders on your team for after very long because they are going to go find places to work or to hang out or to worship or to play. They're
Yeah.
going to find another place to be when leadership has a lack of integrity, when they don't follow through
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
own up to the fact that they haven't
Yeah.
followed
Yeah.
through. So like when we're out of integrity, yeah, it's only wise to own up to it.
Yeah. I was going to ask you a question. Maybe you answered it already.
Mm,
If you answered it, tell me you answered it. I
okay.
think what seems so clear is we live in a time, and maybe we've always lived in a time. I don't know. Maybe that's cliche, but what I notice is that the standard response when we make a mess, just generally, is defense.
Yeah.
Which I
Hmm.
think is a form of like the problems out there. Like, don't
Hmm.
look at me, don't blame me. It's
Right.
somebody else's fault. And I
You're the
think
one.
yes, I think often it comes down to like shame or like I don't want to feel
Yeah.
like I'm the one.
Right.
But what would you say? Maybe you already said it. What would you say to the person that is listening right now that said, oh, maybe I start to defend and maybe there is value. Like how would you talk about that shift or what would you say about the value of that
Yeah.
shift?
Well, I think the value of the shift is that you become a person where you really become a person worth following.
Yeah.
That you are going to earn people's trust, their respect, and by simply being curious enough with yourself in real time. Okay, somebody's saying something, or I'm getting present to the fact that somehow I am out of integrity, and can I We talk about this a lot, right? But I'm here, and all of a sudden something happens or it's said, and boom, it's like I just fall
Yeah.
off the cliff, and I'm doing whatever I can to try to get back to that experience of safety. Because even if we're
Yeah.
leading, we want to feel safe.
Yeah.
And when we don't, and when we feel like, oh, if I acknowledge that I'm out of integrity, that everything's going to come crumbling down. My experience has been exact opposite of that.
Yes. Yes.
When I'm able to acknowledge that, yep, I was out of integrity. I said I was going to do this, I didn't, or I said I was going to do this and I did that instead.
Yeah.
That those are the times when I'm defensive, when I'm not able to look internally, see the part that I play in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
mess, and then ask for the impact, the ripple effect of all of that. Like that's when problems arise. So to
Yeah.
be able to
Yeah.
ask the question
Yeah.
and then explore, right? What's the threat in being honest and vulnerable here?
Yeah.
Can I ask that question? Can I be that curious with myself? And then to say, you know, count the cost. And sometimes it just happens in a breath.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the cost if I go this way, if I go that way? And if I go this way, you know, if I go counter to the way that I want to go,
Yeah.
things are going to fall apart, or
Yeah.
I'm going to lose credibility. And leadership leaders who lose credibility also lose trust, respect. They lose customers, they lose employees,
Yeah.
and they lose their following.
Yeah. I I just cannot affirm enough what you said. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know. I should have snapped.
Ah,
But you said that we fear if we own up to this and be vulnerable and honest that things are going to crumble. You said
yeah.
your experience is the exact opposite. I could not affirm more.
Hmm.
Like that gets me all sorts of jacked up here, like all sorts of excited about the potential of like what happens when a leader does that, like
Yeah.
what positive impact it has when intuitively we say no, that's going to have a negative impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you and I talk about this all the time, and we really do believe, Chris, that there's I don't know why I said we, but listener, Chris and I really do believe that that many of us as leaders feel like there's some sort of limiting factor to
Yeah.
our leadership. And I don't know about you, Chris, or the listener, but I think sometimes we're prone to say, if we could just get more like practical, tactical tools, if we just get that checklist of do X, Y, Z, then we can just get rid of that limiting factor, maybe. But
Yeah.
I wonder if like this is actually one of the things that removes some of those limiting barriers.
I think so. Right. We've talked recently how we can be the lid, and
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and I think the reality is that if when we are out of integrity, if we're not willing to get back into integrity, if we're not willing to clean up our messes, the messes that we make with ourselves and with
Yeah.
those who are in proximity to the situation, the circumstance, the place where I was out of integrity, then, well, we're just going to stay stuck there.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and yeah, the impact of that is far reaching. It's far more significant than I think we ever pay much time thinking or talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I'm getting all sorts of excited. Like I
Right?
just I feel like that conversation around, what would this unlock? What does this unlock in a
Yeah.
team if I'm leading a team? Like that just it gets me all jacked up, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to spend any time on that?
I don't know that I don't know that I have words. I think it's all going to come out as jumbled mess at this point. I mean,
Okay.
I think you said it. I mean, I just think that there is something intentional that we have to do when our sort of autopilot is defend, defend, defend,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can't find out, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yep. Yep.
that's exhausting. That's a practice like people know.
Hmm.
When I don't keep my word, people know. This
Yeah.
isn't like this isn't well, if I don't name it or if I don't ask for impact, they're not going to know. People know, right? Pe
Yeah.
People that I lead are smart. People that I'm around are
Hmm.
smart. They know
Yeah.
when I'm out of integrity.
Yep.
So,
Well, they can
um,
tell when you spend enough
yeah,
time together, right? Because if you're trying to cover for something that you messed up, or if you're trying to cover up and not get found out,
yeah,
imposter syndrome is taking over, and I'm not going to come clean. I'm not going to acknowledge where I missed the
yeah,
mark, where I'm out of integrity. Yeah, people know, they see through it, and they
yeah,
might,
yeah,
at the first time be okay, and the second
yeah,
time they might, but three strikes and we're baseball guys, and I hope that that third one is a foul tip or fouled off down the right field line instead of into the catcher's mitt, because then you're out, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
Then you're
and
out.
that
Yeah,
and that's not really probably true with most people, but the at the risk of foul tipping to the catcher, I would rather be honest up front
yeah,
and try to clean up the messes that I make when I'm out of integrity. And that, like, there were in business, there were times when my limiting factor was my lack of integrity,
mm,
where I was unwilling because I didn't know that I was protecting myself at all costs. I was
yeah,
actually
yeah,
hurting myself
yeah,
and my business. And
yeah,
so and so for employers, I would say, creating a culture where integrity matters and is expected and is invitational to bring it to the table and celebrated, it's applauded. Like,
yeah,
you will develop people at a rate that I think will you will be blown away by,
yeah,
and
yeah,
the system, the organization will become increasingly healthy. You'll become far more productive because people won't be white knuckling it any longer. They'll be able to acknowledge mistakes, and yeah,
yeah,
all
yeah,
the things will move in the proper direction.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
Can I share a story that like
Mhm.
is rushing into my head right now that
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure how I feel about it, but I'm gonna take a risk and put
Let's
it out
go.
there on the interwebs. I've mentioned on the pod before I supervised a process in a manufacturing plant, right?
Hmm.
I supervised a team of like 11 laborers, 11 operators.
Hmm.
Um, I like they were doing a manufacturing process.
Hmm.
I am not a process engineer. I am my brain does not work in
Yeah.
manufacturing terms. So
Hmm.
leading people, I actually feel pretty good about. Leading processes, I don't feel good about. Um, one of the things that just rushed into my head was that there were a couple guys that I supervised that I knew were just going to get their stuff done, right?
Yeah.
That
Yep.
I knew they were gonna stay late, they were gonna skip breaks, and I think I've mentioned on a previous pod that I took advantage of them.
Yeah. Yep.
Here's the other thing that was true. I remember like I can think back and remember times where I would ask one or two of these guys to like just give a little, I need you to do this right now. And then
Mhm.
later in the shift, I'm going to make up for this. I'll let you do this or I'll give you a break or whatever it is. And so many times I can remember not coming back to that.
Yeah. Yep.
And I do remember like saying the problems out there.
Mhm.
And I'm all of a sudden having these things rush into me like, what would the impact have been if I'd have said, "Hey, what was that like for you? What's the
Yeah.
impact of that for you?" Yeah, that's all flooding real time.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Takes your breath away a little bit, right? It's like
it does.
jumping into the 60-degree pool when
Hmm.
the water is supposed to be 85. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Thanks for
don't
saying
know.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I wish 15 years ago Kurt had these tools, you know?
Isn't that something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you do with that, with that realization today? as you think about
Well,
it, what do you want to do with that?
well, that's a good question. I think immediately I want to like shoot these people a message and apologize.
Right? Yeah.
I think there's a mess I want to clean
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
retroactively.
Yep.
I also want to extend myself some self-compassion that
Yes.
you say this all the time. People don't suck on purpose just to piss me off. They're doing the best they
Yeah.
can with what they've got. The same is true
Yep.
for me. Um,
Yep.
and I think honestly that that actually gives me energy to say, man, I don't want to do that again. Right.
Yeah. Yep.
I will. I will make a similar mess.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think it does give me some sort of empowered posture to say, well, I didn't like that and I want that to be different. Right.
Yeah. I think
For
that's
the
really
sake
great.
for the sake of the organization, for the sake of
Yeah.
the people, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because even then, it wasn't malicious or vindictive what you were doing at the time. It was what you knew,
yeah.
and yeah, it's okay,
Yep.
right?
Yep. And
Yeah.
I can imagine my effectiveness being greater, and that's not self-deprecating. I feel like I can say that without shame, but
Yeah.
I,
Understood.
I do look back and wonder like, man, what could have been, if, in terms of my leadership and our productivity and our result. Yeah. Oh man, I didn't expect the things to stir up. Thanks for letting me,
Well, the conversation takes a turn sometimes, right?
yeah,
And somehow in the midst of thinking and talking about integrity, we also like covered a lot of ground regarding why it's so important in cleaning up messes and
yeah,
the
yeah,
value that creates. Like I still want to hold up like giving our word to things. Words have power, and giving our words to things thoughtfully, intentionally, on purpose, it really matters.
yeah, yeah,
And if we can give our word thoughtfully, intentionally, we're more apt to keep it,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
so, but if we don't, then it's the leader's responsibility to have enough curiosity and courage with themselves to ask why and to be able to
yeah,
acknowledge why for the sake of their own leadership, the organization, the people around them, all of it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't have anything else I want to say, Chris.
How do you want to wrap up today?
Well, I mean, I think I want to give the invite. I mean, I think what's true is that we exist to help people understand the importance of integrity and the importance of living into these practices and putting these practices into place. So I think I do want to say to the listener, if the listener's hearing this and saying, "Wow, that sounds really good. Maybe I don't know how to do this,"
Yeah.
or maybe I don't know how to get past this idea that if I'm open and honest and vulnerable, my world's going to crumble. Maybe they're stuck there. We just would love to help the listener navigate that. Um, I think yeah, I think what's true is that we do this work not solely for my sake or your sake or even our client's sake. We do this for the sake of the world changing, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I
So I
mean,
do
that's the
think,
big, hairy, audacious goal, right? Is like
yeah,
we actually think that the world can change if we begin and we continually operate with integrity, doing what we say when we
yeah,
say we're going to do it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. That's right. So I think with that, I would say, listener, if you're feeling that, check out the website, brimstonecoachinggroup.com. There are buttons on that homepage that say schedule a call. We offer free consultation. That's not the right word. Free
Yeah, it
inquiry
is.
calls.
Sure. Yep.
Free exploratory inquiry calls
Yeah.
to see if we can help you journey towards a high value of integrity or towards
Mhm.
wholeness. And it's a mutual sort of trying on in that free call.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think we just really want to be clear to say we would love to help the listener take a step forward.
Yeah. Thanks for the conversation today.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. This was good.